I'd like to thank everybody who is new and subscribed, the new subscribers. Today I'm going to be showing how to take some sponge foo with the insulation foam base and build up a piece of terrain. This is the progress I have so far. You can see the nice texture on that sponge foo. I built up another platform here just to add a little variety to the tabletop gaming piece. Here's a better shot of the ledge for the snipers in wargaming. Here's a miniature for scale. It's a standard 28mm boot to eye. It's the misses in our line. And let's put her up here so you can see. She makes a great sniper position right now. So I'm going to take this piece of scrap foam that I have here. This is from the cobblestone technique that I used on one of my other tutorials with the cobblestone with the snow. So I have this piece of scrap and I carved down the side to create a ramp so that way when the miniatures can climb up without any kind of movement penalty. And then I went ahead and mapped out some ideas that I have here as far as what I may do with some walls and rubble. This may get altered. I kind of want to have an entrance, so this may get moved over a little bit. I may move this over here. Here are the bricks that I've pre-treated. So what I've been doing is taking the bricks and cutting them into a uniform, or roughly a uniform size, which is a 1/2 inch by 1 inch. I just use this as a grid. Next step that I'm going to do is just monotonous labor, but it's it's not a crucial step, but on this one I want to make the bricks a little bit uniform. So on this left side is how the brick looks coming fresh out of being dried. They're bigger and they're they can be wonky shapes, which is fine. I've done a lot of terrain like this and I think it's great. But on this one, I want to make the bricks a little bit smaller and a little bit more uniform. They'll still have a really nice weathered effect, as you can see there. So here's a before and here's an after. And how I get the after is I take the brick and I put it on my grid here. So this is a square inch and I'm only going to use 1/2 of it. So I'm going to use from here on. I take the brick or the block, the sponge foo block, and I put it on the halfway marker. So right here is where we're going to cut here, and then I'm going to trim a little more. Let's see if I can do this with the camera holding it, and then we're going to trim it this way. So it'll start there, and then it'll end up looking like that. Now keep in mind, these are supposed to be ruins, so I don't want these to all look the same. Okay, they're supposed to look different like that. Bam. Okay, so there's my standard-ish 1 by 1 by 1/2 inch, and then I wanted to show you other pieces of sponge foo that I cut in different sizes. And what I like to do sometimes is take an inexpensive miniature toy. I ordered a set of these. I ordered a set of these and I thought they would be bigger, but they're not. So here's a standard mini. So yeah, so I thought it would be a little bit bigger, but it wasn't. So it's a different scale miniature. But what they're great for is if you wash off with Dawn, wash off all the grease and oil from the injection process, these make great statues. Here's another one. I thought it would be a little bit bigger than this, like maybe like the size of something, but no, it's not. It's a small dragon. So these make great statues. And easy way to make a base for them, you could use bottle caps, which I do, or if you want to do something a little weathered, just stack on things like this. Your sponge foo, however you want. Actually, which one? There you go. Stack your sponge foo square or your sponge foo and then put that on there, and you can paint it, and it makes a really good base for statues. glue that on there and then paint this whatever kind of stone texture you want, and this makes a really good base for statues. Kind of looks just like a blob of black down there. That's why I bring it up. And it's just sponges. Cut however you want. Here's the dragon. I put the dragon on top instead if you want to have maybe have this be for the serpent of the dragon queen or whatever. And I'm going to do a tutorial on how to make these, how to glue these together, and how to paint. I found a really cool technique for painting things in metallics, so we'll do a tutorial. Okay, now some of the blocks that I did in the sponge food tutorial ended up having some aluminum foil on them. The reason being is that, first of all, I didn't have my proper tools. I should have used parchment paper, but I decided to do a last-minute tutorial just willy-nilly, and this happened. Well, the reason being is that the latex paint, if I don't ring up the blocks enough, will attach to the aluminum foil, which is not really that big of a deal. It also adds texture. You can trim it off, or you could just glue it down like this, and it's all good. Here's another block I did that is bigger, because sometimes I like to make stairs, something like that, or a different shape, or I take the sponge foo and use it as a base for a statue, and I'll do another tutorial on how to make cheap, affordable statues out of plastic bits. So you don't have to make, you can make these sponge foo blocks however big or size or you want. There's a little variety of sizes for you to look at. I'm just over here squaring off the rest of these sponge foo blocks. Sometimes they get a little funny shapes to them. That one's got a little bit of that trapezoidal shape to it. So just trim them off, square everything up. And once again, keep in mind, these do not have to be perfect. Sometimes I even take a little nick out of an edge to make sure they're not perfect. So here, this is what we're working with. Okay, so right here you can see I'm gonna just square off these edges. So that's all I'm doing, just squaring off these edges. Blood, sweat, and tears. So let's say I just want to make this a little more chunk of a rune. I can just cut off a bit there and see how that just gives a nice little texture to it. I feel like I've cut through most of these already. Oh, there we go. I could square this off. And this one I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to eyeball it. Square off those edges. Get it to look a little better. These two have glued together, and I could just leave them or not. I think what I'm going to do here is just trim off some of the aluminum foil that is stuck on there, because that looks, when you just leave those, that's great for a base for some rubble pile. See how I can just build a rubble pile like that easy. Rubble pile, Mary. Alright, these are all just kind of mismatched. I don't know what I can get out of here if I can. You know what, I think I'm still going to dig through and straighten these out. And I'm just eyeballing. Some of these are just a little small, but it doesn't matter. They are ruins. The beauty of making rubble piles and ruins and things. It's pretty close. Oh my gosh, that's pretty perfect. And I'm going to leave that just because I know it's going to paint up and give a little extra texture. Once again, I'm just straightening up the last few bits. That's great. It's wonky and great. I'm just going to make it a little more wonky. There we go. That'll be a great chunk of rubble. So see how, see how that's kind of at an angle? What I'm doing is I'm just taking and I'm cutting down this way. And once again, I am eyeballing this. Does not have to be perfect. See once again how that's got that angle there? I just want to straighten that out a little bit. Ooh. Ooh. You know, I'm just going to leave that. Just maybe reshape it a little bit. So this is all that I have left. And I really don't know if I can make any perfect fit blocks out of any of this. I keep saying that, and then I keep digging around and finding one more. So one more. Just a never-ending pile. Okay, so here's another example of the aluminum foil all on there. Just cut that off. And I guess I'm just gonna, this is my last bit right in here, this last little bits right here. I'm gonna fish through one last time and then put all those in there. If I need to trim anything, I can trim as I go on those. And let's just get this squared up a little bit. This one's a little thinner, which I like. And then on this one, see once again, it's got that angle there, which I don't really care for all the time. Sometimes it's okay, but on this one, I don't really want it. A little every now and again is okay, but I don't want it all the way around. It's almost gonna fit. Still needs a little more squaring off. And be careful with your X-Acto blade. They are sharp, as you can see. And then this little wrangly bit, I'm just gonna, let's see, where do I want to cut that? Just right there, what does that do? Okay. So here are the bits that I'm going to keep. I'm going to keep this little bit too, and we'll just treat it. I threw out most of the scraps, but I kept some of the bigger ones and some of the ones that could give the illusion of being something else. Here's my scrap piece of foam from the tutorial with the how to make cobblestones. I'll put the link in there and my rough outline of how I'm going to glue on my blocks. I'm going to use the glue gun, and I'm also going to use some Elmer's. I prefer Arlene's, so I may dig that out, but I have this on my table right now staring at me, and most people have the Elmer's. But I'm going to start with a base of PVA, down here because the glue gun will melt the XPS foam. I'm going to show a couple ways to do this. The terrain piece I showed you before with the obelisk was done using PVA glue, but a lot of the wargaming terrain I showcase was made using hot glue. Here are the blocks that I've trimmed. Most are the same size-ish. Once again, they're ruins. I do have some odd shapes in here because I do like to do that kind of thing. If I need to trim some to fit, I will. Let's see, what else do we need? I think we're good to go. So I may re-angle the camera. I'm beginning to lose light from outside. So I'm just gonna begin doing this and then maybe show, edit and show some other options of what it looks like when it's what's been turned into. Okay, so I want to have this terrain piece be with the slope, so a miniature can come up here and not have a terrain penalty. A lot of war games you get a terrain penalty for climbing. Same thing with D&D and such. This height right here is 2 inches, which in D&D war games terrain could be anywhere from, say, I don't know, 5 feet to 10 feet, or yeah, about 5 feet to 10, isn't it 5 inches an inch? Old school D&D an inch was 10 feet, but new school D&D an inch is 5 feet. So yeah, here's an example of the mini next to it. So I want to have this be a rampway, and then this is where I have the walls roughly outlined. I think I'm going to alter this one because I kind of want the concept to be that this is an old building, and at one point people would come up here and enter the building. This area doesn't have ruins, I'm going to do with a green flocking, and then this is going to be a stone texture. I may have a little brown pathway or something going on, details too. We'll see what's going on. But I also want to keep this a lot simple. I always say that, but at this point I want to try and keep it more simple because I don't really have a whole lot of sponge food blocks to use. This seems like a lot, but they go up pretty quick. So there you go. I guess watch me work. Like a bricklayer does, but instead of using mortar, I would use the glue. And then when I get to the top, I kind of pick out something that has a nice texture to it. Let's see if I can get in the focus. No, not really. Okay, see how it's got a nice little texture to it. So just put that there like that. Okay. So here's my miniature. I've got Persia. She's going to be my scale model. That is tall as she is. So I'm going to go a little bit higher, but not much. There you go, Persia. I'll go one more up. So that is going to be my highest point with this. Okay. And let's see. Put a brick right there. make sure everything gets saturated with that PVA glue. Now I get to be really sloppy with the PVA glue because this actually helps add another layer of sealant to both the XPS foam as well as the sponge foo. So with the hot glue, I would not be nearly as messy with that because it hardens and creates a different texture. But with this, I can just take it and smooth it in, and it adds a whole nother layer of hardening and protection for the sponge. So for a spot like this, see that little spot right there? Right there. That little spot right there. What I like to do sometimes, I could leave it like that because that looks really cool, or I'll take a small piece, a small bit, and put glue on it and insert that inside of there. As if the brick was perhaps cut in half. Which I think looks nice. Now this is all still really wet and malleable, so you can shape it however you want. And then when it dries, you can still move it around a little bit and shape it. So there's an example of the wall. I like how that just is sticking out there. Once again, it's the ruined effect. It's a decent sized wall. Pardon that noise, that was my hot glue gun falling over. So yeah, there's one way of making your wall. I like this way. It's a little tricky because things are malleable. So here's, I've zoomed out, and here is the PVA glue option. I don't know what that is on there. Oh, that's hot glue, of course. Of course, it's a stringy hot glue thing. But there you go. You can see the wall beginning to take shape. The ruin pile wall. And just to be sure I've got enough room here, I'm going to take my Jack Frost miniature, which is coming out. I think he'd make a really good elf wizard, as well as Jack Frost. And then I'm going to measure to make sure that he can sneak on by here for the game. And it looks like that's all good and works out. So I'm just going to keep going with this method. I'm going to keep doing the PVA method for the base. And then I'm going to do the hot glue just to show just to show you guys how to do it with the hot glue. And you can, I guess, laugh as I burn my fingers or whatever. So let's do, that looks kind of cool. All right, let's put that one there. I'll do hot glue on this one. So hot glue, same technique. Just put it on the side and on top. Ooh, that's real messy. I'm gonna have to clean that up. And then get the hot glue everywhere you want it. Pop that baby on there. Let's do another. I'm gonna do another one up top because I think that just adds another layer of strength to it. But I'm not going to do a full wall because, because these are ruins. I'm going to do just a partial wall on the two spots there. And I'm going to leave it, I'm going to put a little space there just because that reinforces the imagery of this is a ruin. Now, with the hot glue, I like to get in there closer and make sure there's nothing poking through with the hot glue because that will paint up. It's not as forgiving as the PVA, and that will paint up and kind of create a different kind of texture. So, which is more noticeable in photos if you get up close to it than it is in, say, when you're actually playing the game. There's the wall, kind of not really super straight, which is perfect. I like those. I like those ruined walls, which are like, how is that even standing? When you look at it, ruins and stuff. Okay, so it's nice and still malleable. It's perfect. I'm gonna get to work, and I think from this point, y'all get the basic concept of. Awesome. So I guess at this point you all get the concept. I'm gonna have to hold this because that's not dry yet, but you get the idea of how to build up your ruin pile wall for your building. I'm gonna fidget with this a little more because it just fell over like that. It's not dry enough, And then when I'm finished, probably tomorrow maybe, when the light's better, and when I finish tweaking this and giving it a chance to dry, I will show you what I've come up with. Thanks, and you all have a great day. Please click the like and subscribe button, and stay tuned with more Warren Christmas Village building things and minis and all that kind of good stuff.